This is an Originative instructional video on how literacy development is supported by hands-on learning. Nothing lives in a vacuum. When we consider language and literacy development, it is important to remember that all reading and writing skills utilize pre-existing competencies and neuroconnections to develop discrete augmentations that lead to decoding symbologies like written text and coding or writing within a particular symbology or written language. We might think of the young brain as a dense forest without paths. Our first path is crude, but as we use the trail more and more, a track turns into a road into a highway. Growth and development of the physical body is the first requirement. Gross motor is the first path with body movement, coordination, and proprioception. This begets reflexes and tactile manipulation, small and fine motor, which in turn begets oral communication and ultimately critical thinking. The body is integral in learning language, and these are essential prerequisites for successful acquisition of reading and writing skills. Adequate or comparable growth of the foundations necessary for literacy cannot be assumed as sufficient or equal across international borders, socioeconomic lines, or generations. Affluent societies, for example, are demonstrating resounding deficiencies in language and critical thinking due to suppressed corporal development due to increasing screen time. Here is a graphic demonstrating the foundations of literacy belonging to the development of the whole body. Aiming at cognitive development without the robust focus on all motor foundations is contradictory and ignorant to the integration that our brains and body have collaboratively evolved. For example, the loss of handwriting in lieu of computer literacy as a focus on fine motor development and sensory motor development in general has a direct correlation with increased challenges in the growth of language, literacy, and critical thinking. Research over the last century, aided by the advent of new technology, has shown that a child's brain by the age of 3 has completed 85% of its growth. By age 5, that is 90%. Investment and professional education focus on early childhood is the most essential and often the least accessible for families and communities without means. Following these early years of explosive brain growth, the body moves to synaptic pruning of unused neurons. The critical window of language development is 0 to 5. After these years, language and other learning becomes increasingly more difficult. The brain retains what is relevant and discards what is extra baggage. Instruction that utilizes multiple sensory inputs and heightened relevance can achieve deeper, more sustained learning. The more sensory motor and emotional input we can create, the more the brain determines it is relevant and should be retained. When considering literacy development in conjunction with prerequisite development of the whole body, there are several key factors that should be present. First is the use of spoken language, and if possible, multiple languages from caregivers that have an emotional connection with the learner. We know from recent studies that the number of words spoken in the home, whatever the language, directly affect the learner's ability to acquire literacy later on. Free play and movement contributes to prerequisite development of language and cognitive skills later on. Children restricted from free play demonstrate increased challenges in cognitive functioning and critical thinking later in life. Families that are literate model the foundations of literacy development. For that reason, it is crucial to invest in literacy development for caretakers. A healthy diet supports brain development and focus and is a primary factor in school or learning readiness. Early focus and support of fine motor skills, such as tying shoelaces, handwriting, and tool use, are crucial to create pathways necessary for literacy skills to build upon. Song and musical exposition aids in memory and relevance by tapping into additional sensory motor development. A spectrum of non lyrical to narrative to abstract lyricism should be implemented purposefully to scaffold the concrete to the abstract. In short, relevant input is more likely to move into deep learning or long term memory. For both children and adults, relevant instruction is tangible rather than abstract, soaked in novelty, pattern laden, as with music, or in the form of narrative or story. We can qualify the sensory input of prerequisites for literacy by pairing the competency with the sensory motor paradigm. For spoken language, it's auditory. Free play and movement, it's kinesthetic. A family culture of literacy is visual modeling with emotional relevance. Healthy diet, taste, nutrition, and gastrointestinal input. Fine motor skills, tactile input, song, musical patterns. Most people have experienced cramming for a test, getting the grade or not. But what happens after the test? Studies show that we forget about 95% of what we learn in school within 3 days of receiving the instruction. Another way to look at this is that we only learn about 5% of what we are instructed. This was scientifically demonstrated in the 1880s by Hermann Ebbinghaus, whose meticulous research produced the forgetting curve. While this seems drastic, it is actually a good thing. We experience so much useless information every minute of the day that it would be problematic to remember everything. So, our brains and biology have a very efficient way of sorting relevant data from non. We have a nice idiom to describe that. It goes, if we don't use it, we lose it. Ebbinghaus identified the importance of repetition in convincing the brain to retain information, even if it is essentially meaningless. In fact, the forgetting curve specifically identifies the problem with trying to force learn irrelevant information. But what if there was a way to leap instruction into long term memory? Actually, there are a few. Novelty is a direct doorway to long term memory, along with unique moments of extraordinary emotion. Catastrophes are one example of this. Many of us might remember specific details that we were experiencing on 9/11, for example, or Columbine, or the Martin Luther King or JFK assassinations. Our brains said, whoa, this is important, and opened the threshold to long term memory. Many fantastic instructors understand how to leverage novelty to gain amazing efficiency in instruction. This methodology, however, can be extremely exhausting and unsustainable for instructors to produce all learning in this manner. Another more subtle but just as effective way is to engage a living classroom. The best example of this is nature or the great outdoors. The reason nature is a more effective instructional environment is that it engages multiple senses at the same time. If we combine sensory input, we are telling the brain that something is more meaningful by bombarding it with different unique inputs, as opposed to a predictable, typical, stagnant classroom that is by design devoid of change and relevant input. Outside, there are smells, the feelings of the weather, the movement of our bodies, the myriad of sounds emanating from different places. When we add food, the sense of taste to the palette of instructional input is overwhelming. This is why at Originative, we believe schools should be built around cooking and eating. Taste and the sensory input of the mouth is our first and one of our most powerful learning senses. There's one more secret, though: the amazing and almost magical power of story. Our brains are wired for story. Some anthropologists posit that our deep connection with story, and ultimately language in its entirety, is based around local gossip that grows into legend. We remember stories after only one input. If I tell a story to a group of children and then return a year later and tell the same story, the audience will often correct me on the pieces that were inconsistent with the first telling. This is economy of instruction. When we tell stories that are relevant to culture, ecology, and ethics, the audience is actually living out the story simultaneously. One story might include a cross reference of disciplines: history, human behavior, earth science, mathematics, geography, art, and of course, always language. When we consider that the brain is 90% developed by 5 years of age, the economy of instruction becomes immensely important. Understanding the way learning happens can provide us with ample insight into how to make instruction and sustainability and prosperity the realities of our efforts in training. Hands on learning of a relevant trade, when paired with literacy development and the use of culturally relevant folklore, can have a compounding effect of raising a community into self advocacy and financial independence, while simultaneously reconnecting community members with their own culture with which to craft their purpose.